Hi everyone, welcome to another crochet tutorial with me, Laura, and today I thought I would show you how to make my succulent plants, and this pattern is available on my website happyberry.co.uk if you want to go check out the written pattern. Okay, so let's begin. So for this pattern you can use any yarn and hook that's suitable for the yarn you're using. I just happen to have, I actually found this in my stash because all checking our stashes at the moment, and it's Paintbox yarn, so it's not sponsored by Paintbox, but this is a nice, really nice green yarn, so I'm quite chuffed that I found this. This is actually an Aran weight yarn, so that's a worsted weight, and with that you're going to need a little bit of brown yarn as well. So you can use turquoise yarn, you can use green yarn, you could use a pale purple yarn for this. So this I actually made with a DK, a light worsted weight yarn, so you really can just adapt this pattern to any yarn. You're also going to need some toy stuffing or yarn scraps for stuffing, and pair of scissors and a yarn needle, and with this chunkier yarn I'm going to be using a 5mm crochet hook, so we'll see how it turns out with that size. Okay, so let's begin. Okay, so we're going to start off with our plant colour, so I get my green yarn, and we're going to do 6 single crochet into a 4 chain loop or a magic circle. You can always interchange between a magic circle and a 4 chain, but we're going to do a 4 chain loop, so do a little slip knot. I'm going to chain 4, 1, 2, 3 and 4. Put our hook into the first chain, bring the yarn through, straight through the loop on your hook, and we've got a little 4 chain loop. So we're going to work 6 single crochet into there. So I'm going to start off with a little chain 1 first, just for a bit of leverage. So I'm going to put our hook into the center of that loop, so not your first chain, right into the middle. Bring the yarn through, then just wrapping it around your chains, do a single crochet. So that this pattern's in US terminology. In UK terminology, that's a double crochet. So we want 6 of those. So that's 1. Do another one. 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Okay, so you've got 6 of those. Just going to pull that in a bit, and then we're going to slip stitch into our first single crochet. So find your first single crochet and slip stitch into there. So this succulent plant should end up a little bit bigger than my other ones, so that'll be exciting to find out how much bigger it will be. Okay, so then what we're going to do is we're going to work into the front loops only. So going back into the same stitch you just slip stitch into, instead of going under both loops, we're just going to go under that first loop only. So in there we're going to do a single crochet, and we're also going to do a double crochet. So UK terminology, that's a treble. Just under that front loop only, do a double crochet. Then we're going to chain 2, 1 and 2, and we're going to slip stitch in the top of that previous double crochet. So find the stitch at the top, just bring your hook down, go into that stitch, slip stitch into there. That creates a little picot at the top, it creates a little pointy bit. And then what we're going to do is we're going to find the next the next stitch. So this will be the next stitch. We just want to work under that front loop only, and we're going to do that in reverse. We're going to do a double crochet just under that front loop, then a single crochet, and then a slip stitch in there as well. Okay, and that's our very first little petal done. We're going to repeat that all the way around. So in the next front loop only, just the front loop, you do a single crochet, a double crochet, chain 2, then slip stitch in that top of that previous double crochet, then find the next front loop, and we do that in reverse. We do a double crochet, a single crochet, and finish with a slip stitch. Okay, let's do that one more time. Next front loop only, single crochet, double crochet, chain 2, and slip stitch in the top of the previous double crochet. Then in the last front loop we do that in reverse. We do a double crochet, a single crochet, and then finish with a slip stitch. Okay, so it should have a little triangle, which looks quite cool. And then we're going to work into the skipped back loops. So what you want to do is find your first skipped back loop. So if we turn this over, I'm going to cut the tail down to make this easier to see. So you can see there you've got this little ring of loops, stitches. So we want to find the first one, and the easiest way to do that is find the first half of your first petal and then turn it over and see where that back loop, skipped back loop is, which is there. And in there we want to do 2 single crochet. So we do 1 and 2. Then we find the next skipped back loop, and they become a bit easier to see now. So there's the next one. Do 2 single crochet in there. We're going to do 2 single crochet in each skipped back loop around until we've got a stitch count of 12. So the next one is just there. You can see the little sort of dark hole there where all the stitches have been worked, and it's just above there. So 2 single crochet in there. Two single crochet in the next skipped back loop. So if you're finding this a little bit difficult and you're a beginner to crochet, then do check out my beginner tutorials and coming back to this one. So next back loop, 2 single crochet, and then the last one, 2 single crochet in there. Try and keep the stitches loose so they're easier to see as well. Okay, so now we're back at the beginning. You should have a stitch count of 12. We're going to move on to our next round of petals, and again we're going to go back to working in the front loops only. So in the next front loop, let's find our first front loop. So our first 2, so you can count backwards to find your first single crochet. So 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So that is our first single crochet that we did there, just behind that petal. So I'm going to put my hook into there, and I'm just going to do a slip stitch in there. So we're going to slip stitch into that first front loop. So don't go under both loops. Then what we're going to do is we're going to chain 2, and these petals are a little bit different now, but all these petals are going to be the same now. It's only these first 3 that are different. So we're going to chain 2, and then in the same front loop we're going to do a double crochet, or treble in UK terminology. Then we're going to do a US treble, so we're going to wrap the yarn around our hook twice, and in the UK terminology that's a double treble. In the same front loop, pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2. And then we're going to do that little picot thing on the end. So we're going to chain 2, this time slip stitch in the previous treble. So just bring your hook down, pop it in and do a slip stitch. Okay, that's the first half done, and then we're going to move on to the next front loop only. So that's our next stitch, but we only want to go onto that front loop. Start off with a treble, pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2. Then a double crochet, Then we're going to chain 2 and slip stitch in there as well. Okay, that's our next petal done. Then we're going to slip stitch in the next front loop only. Okay. And we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to chain 2, do a double crochet, treble, chain 2 and do the picot on the end, so slip stitch in the top of the previous treble. Then we find the next front loop and do that in reverse. We do a treble, a double crochet, then chain 2 and slip stitch in the same front loop, then slip stitch in the next front loop and repeat. Okay, you should end up with 6 of these petals, so I should do that and then I shall come back. So chain 2, double crochet. Okay, so when you get to the end, just finishing up my last petal, slip stitch. What we're going to do when we get to the end is we're going to just find the first skipped back loop. So we do the same thing again, find your first petal and the first half of it, bend it over and look for where that little dark hole is. So using a chunk of yarn actually makes it easier to see. And there's our first skipped back loop. And in there we're going to do 1 single crochet. Then in the next skipped back loop we're going to do 2 single crochet. 1 and 2. We're going to repeat that all the way around until we've got a stitch count of 18. So next back loop, 1 single crochet, then the next back loop, 2 single crochet. And if you're not seeing these back loops, it means you've worked into your stitch properly, so you need to just only work into that front loop so you can see these stitches. Then back to 1 single crochet, and then 2 single crochet, back to the beginning. Coming up to the last stitch, so 1 single crochet, then the very last back loop, 2 single crochet, 1 and 2. Okay, we should now have a stitch count of 18, and we're going to go back to working in our front loops again. I mean, you could just stop there if you wanted to. You've already got a nice double flower. It looks a little bit like a daffodil if you did it in yellow. But we're going to carry on, do another round, and it's a similar thing. But the first thing we need to do, we need to offset our petals. So if we just worked straight into the next stitch, our petals would all be behind each other. So we need to find the first stitch, and again you can count back if you want to, back to find out which is your first single crochet, but I'm just going to have a little look there. So 1 and 2, so that's my first single crochet there. I'm just going to work into the front loop only, so not all the way through. It's the front loop, and we're going to slip stitch into there. Okay, we're actually going to slip stitch in the next 2 front loops as well before we start our petal. So the next one and the next one. So we slip stitched in the first 3. Okay, and now we're going to start our petal, and they're the same thing again. So chain 2, 1 double crochet, then a treble. Like I said, if you want the written pattern, is on my website, happyberry.co.uk. Then chain 2 and do a little picot at the end. So slip stitch in the top of that previous TR. And then in the next front loop, so move over to the next one, we do that in reverse, not including the chains, doing a treble, a double crochet, then chain 2 and slip stitch in the same front loop. Okay, so that's our first petal done. You can see now it's sat between these two rather than sitting behind this petal, so that's why we slip stitched over. And in between our petals we are going to slip stitch in the next two. So slip stitch in the next front loop and slip stitch in the next front loop. Okay, so we're slip stitching in the next two, then we do our petal again. So chain 2, double crochet, treble, chain 2, slip stitch in top of previous treble, then next front loop we start off with treble, double crochet, chain 2 and slip stitch, all in the same front loop, then slip stitch in the next two and repeat. So slip stitch in the next front loop, slip stitch in the next front loop, and repeat the same steps again, chain 2, so on and so forth. You can see these petals are sat in between, so I'm going to repeat that all the way around till we have 6 petals. So each round has only 6 petals, so you're just slip stitching more in between. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so I'm going to do that and then I shall come back. So double crochet. Okay, just coming up to the end, I've just done the chain 2 and I'm slip stitching in that front loop. It's actually the front loop of one of our first slip stitches, so you will end up working into those first slip stitches that we did, but just keep working in the front loop, it's okay. And there we go, so that's the end of that round, and now we need to find our back loops. So we are going to do 1 single crochet in the back loop of the next slip stitch. So we need to find, rather than going straight into behind the leaf, we do actually have 1 stitch left, which you can see there. So what we want to do is find that slip stitch and find the back loop of that slip stitch and do a single crochet. Okay, and then we're going to do 1 single crochet in the first proper skipped back loop. So again, it's behind this leaf and it's just there. We do 1 single crochet in there, so don't miss that slip stitch, that last slip stitch. Then we are going to do 2 single crochet in the next back loop. So 2 single crochet in the next back loop, and then we just repeat that all the way around, doing 1 single crochet in the next 2, then 2 single crochet. So 1 single crochet in the next back loop, and it's going to be in a slip stitch, 1 single crochet in the next back loop, then 2 single crochet in the next back loop, 1 and 2, then back to 1 single crochet. So 1 single crochet in the next 2 back loops, 2, and then 2 single crochet in the next back loop. You should have a stitch count of, what's our 6 times table? 6, 12, 18, is it 24? 18, 19, 20, 22, 24, yes, 24. 24 stitches. Oh, my times tables are so bad. So I should do that, then I shall come back. So 1 single crochet, 1 single crochet, then 2 single crochet. Then just in the last stitch and 2 single crochet. Okay, so we are not quite back at the beginning. No, we're not back at the beginning yet. You've got to wait till you find these proper single crochets. So sometimes I think I'm at the end and I'm not. So 1 single crochet, 1 single crochet, then 2 single crochets. So that can catch you out. You think you're back at the end, but you need to work all your way around to those single crochets. Okay, so you should have a stitch count of 24. And now we're going to go back to working in the front loops only. So this time we're going to, first of all, let's find our first single crochet. So it's going to be at the end of this leaf and it's just sat there. and we're going to slip stitch in the first 4 this time, first 4 front loops. So getting our leaf out of the way, go into the next stitch and not all the way through, got to go into that front loop, better than I am, and slip stitch in there. Then we're going to slip stitch in the next front loop, 2, next front loop, 3, and the next front loop, 4. So we slip stitch in the first 4 front loops, and you can see that then puts us in between these petals. So we then just do our petal again. So we're going to chain 2, double crochet in the same front loop as your 4th slip stitch, treble, then we do a little picot, chain 2. So all the petals are the same now. Slip stitch in the top of the TR, then find your next front loop and do a treble, double crochet, chain 2, and slip stitch in the same front loop. Then this time we're going to slip stitch in the next 3, okay, the next 3, so front loops. So slip stitch in the next front loop, 1, slip stitch in the next front loop, 2, and slip stitch in the next front loop, 3. Okay, then do your next petal, chain 2, working the stitches into the same stitch as that slip stitch, and repeat that all the way around. So I shall do that and come back, treble, picot on the end, slip stitch in the top of the treble, then find your next front loop and do that in reverse. So we do a treble, then a double crochet, and then chain 2 and slip stitch in the same front loop, and then in between we're slip stitching in the next 3. So 1, 2, and just bypasses the front petal, 3, and then we do our next petal, chain 2. Okay, so repeat that all the way around. Okay, then finishing up the last petal, and the second half of your last petal will be worked into the front loop of your first slip stitch. So same as always, but it's just into a slip stitch. So we do a treble, double crochet, chain 2, and slip stitch. Okay, so that's the end of that round, and it's starting to look quite big. So then we're going to move on to, let's turn my pattern over. See how cute pattern look here. Now we're going to move on to round 9, and we're going to start off with doing 1 single crochet in the first 2 back loops, and these are actually in previous slip stitches. So you've got these 2 stitches left here. So we're going to work into the back loop of the next slip stitch, and in there we're doing a single crochet, then a single crochet in the back loop of the next slip stitch. So it's definitely a lot easier to see in the chunky yarn, so definitely recommend using the chunky yarn at first. Then we're going to do a single crochet in the first proper skipped back loop. So we've reached our petal now, so turn it over and let's find our skipped back loop just there and do a single crochet in there. So it's 1 single crochet in the next 3 back loops. Then in the next back loop we do 2 single crochet, 1 and 2, and we're going to repeat that all the way around, doing 1 single crochet in the next 3 back loops, then 2 single crochet, and we've got slip stitches in between. So these slip stitches in between, just find the back loops that all line up and do 1 single crochet in the next 3. So 1, next back loop, also a slip stitch, 2, then 3 is going to be a proper back loop, 3, then 2 single crochet in the next back loop. So I'm going to repeat that all the way around until you've got a stitch count of, is it 30 now? 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Yes, 30. Should have known that. So 1 single crochet in the next 3 back loops. 1, 2, 3, then 2 single crochet. And let's go up to the last back loop, 2 single crochet. 1 and 2. Now I'm back at the beginning. Okay, just so a stitch count of 30. Okay, this time we want to find, so we find our first single crochet that we did. It's always going to be sat at the bottom of this petal, so it's just there. I think, or is it? Work back from the 2 single crochet. 1, 2, 3, so it is there. And working into the front loops only again now. We're going to slip stitch in the next 5 this time. So find that first single crochet and go into the front loop only and slip stitch in there. So that's 1. Next stitch, front loop only, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So slip stitch in the first 5. It's taking us to in between these petals, and then we work the petal as normal. So chain 2, double crochet in the same stitch as your previous slip stitch, double crochet, treble, chain 2, slip stitch on top of your treble. Then next front loop, do that in reverse, do a treble, double crochet, chain 2 and slip stitch. And this time in between our petals we're slip stitching in the next 4, so it's always one less than what we do at the beginning. So slip stitch in the next stitch, slip stitch in the next front loop, next front loop 3, and the next front loop 4. Then do your next petal. So I shall repeat that and then I shall come back. So just slip stitch in the next 4 in between your petals for this round. Okay, so just finishing up the last petal and slip stitching to finish, and this second half of the last petal is always worked into that first slip stitch. Okay, so moving on to the next round, we've now got these 3 slip stitches here and we're going to work into the back loops of them. So we're going to do 1 single crochet in the back loop of the next slip stitch. If I can get it. So a single crochet and then a single crochet in the next back loop, 2, and a single crochet in the next back loop, 3. Then we reach our first petal and we find the first proper skipped back loop and we do a single crochet in there. So that's 1 single crochet in the first 4 this time, and then 2 single crochet in the next back loop. We're going to repeat that all the way around. So find the back loops of these slip stitches, well, these skipped back loops here, and do 1 single crochet in the next 4, then 2 single crochet, 1 single crochet in the next 4, then 2 single crochet, and you should have a stitch count I think of 36. So next back loop, single crochet, 1, next back loop, 2, next back loop, 3, next back loop, 4, then 2 single crochet, 1 and 2. Let's repeat that all the way around. Okay, let's go up to the end, the very last back loop, 2 single crochet, always sits behind the second half of that last petal. Okay, this time we're not going to slip stitch over to get all the way over here. We can just start in between these petals now. So what we're going to do is we're just going to slip stitch into the next stitch. So in the first single crochet we're going to slip stitch into the front loop of there, so slip stitch into there, and then we're going to start our petals straight away. So chain 2 and then go back into the same stitch. We do a double crochet, then a treble, chain 2, slip stitch in the treble, then in the next back loop, next front loop, sorry if I've been saying back loop, it needs to be the front loop, and the next front loop, I've done too many rounds of this now, do that in reverse with a treble, double crochet, and then we chain 2 and slip stitch. Okay, so this time we're going to slip stitch in the next 5 front loops to get over to the next gap. So slip stitch in the next 5 front loops, so that's 1 front loops only, 2, 3, 4 and 5, and then do your next petal. So chain 2, going back into the same stitch as your slip stitch, double crochet, and so on and so forth. So just repeat that all the way around, doing your petals and then slip stitching in the next 5 front loops in between your petals. And this will be our last round of petals. You'll be pleased to know. I mean, feasibly you could carry on, but we're going to just make it this big. Chain 2, slip stitch, and then we slip stitch in the next 5 front loops. So I shall repeat that, then I'll come back and we can then work on the base. Okay, so there we are, we're back at the beginning and you've got a load of stitches left. You will have stitches left, but as long as you've done your 6 petals, we're at the end. And what you want to do now is we're going to create the soil. So you can make this as high as you want. It's just a little something just to finish off the plant, and allows you to, this little pot here, which I got a while ago, this a cactus normally sits in this, but it just gives you something just to pop it inside to sit on top of a little flower pot. So obviously you want to find a flower pot that's actually going to fit your succulent, the size that you do. Like I said, this has been done with an Aran worsted weight, and this one has been done exactly the same pattern but in a DK, a light worsted weight. So you can see the size difference, and that's just down to the weight of the yarn and the hook size. So what we're going to do now, we're going to grab some soil coloured yarn and we're going to join this in the next back loop. So let's find our next stitch, and these are just normal stitches, so we can just work into this stitch. Actually, we're just going to work into the back loop, let's be consistent. So in the next stitch we'll find the back loop, grab the brown yarn and just bring that through the loop. So you're now working with your brown yarn, and in there we're going to do, in the same stitch again, we're going to do a single crochet. I'm going to do 1 single crochet in each back loop around. So we should have a stitch count. Oh, I don't even know what it's up to now. Is it 36, 37, 38, 39, 41, 42? It could be 42. I've written it on the written pattern, but it's not on my notes, so it should be either 36 or 42. So 1 single crochet in the next back loop, then in the next one, 3, 4, and then we've got a proper back loop here on the petal, 4, 5, 6. So I'm going to do that and come back. I'm just doing 1 single crochet in each back loop around, 7, and the last one 36. Yeah, so the stitch count is 36 still. Okay, we're going to cut our green yarn, get that out of the way. I'm just going to tie that with the tail end of the brown yarn just to hold that in place. double knot, stick that on the inside, and then we're going to do a few rounds of just one single crochet each stitch around. So that would be my first round. On this one I just did 1, 2, 3 rounds, 4 including the first round there, so 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to do 3 more rounds of just one single crochet in each stitch around, keeping a stitch count of 36. But you can make it longer if you want to, it's entirely up to you. So 1, just work into the stitches as normal now as well, no front loops or back loops, you can go under both loops as normal. So I should do that, then I'll come back and do 3 rounds. Okay, so I've done 3 rounds of just one single crochet in each stitch round, and now it's time just to close it up and finish it off. So what we're going to do is we're just going to single crochet 2 stitches together until the hole just gets smaller. But I'm going to do the invisible decrease, so I'm going back to my front loops only. Go into the next front loop and then the next front loop, pull through both front loops and single crochet. Next front loop, next front loop, pull through, finish with a single crochet. So I'm doing the invisible decrease all the way around, just keep going and going and going until the hole closes down. You can do the normal decrease if you want to, which is into the next stitch, pull the yarn through, into the next stitch, pull the yarn through, pull through all 3, but it makes it a little bit bulkier, whereas you can see there it's a lot smoother. So I'm going to do the front loop method instead. So front loop, pull through, single crochet. Okay, so I shall repeat this over and over until the hole just gets smaller, and then we'll add some stuffing. Okay, so I continued that until the hole's about this size, and then I'm going to stuff the little flower. Succulent, not a flower, is it? It's a succulent. Just going to add some stuffing. Okay, so when that's nice and firm, then just going to carry on with the single crocheting 2 together until it gets too fiddly, and then we'll just sew the remaining hole closed. So back to my single crocheting 2 together. Okay, so I can't go any further, so I'm just going to cut my yarn, pull that loop through, and then grab a yarn needle, put that on the yarn needle, and then what I'm going to do is draw string, sew it closed. And what that means is you go into the next stitch, out for the next stitch, give it a little pull, do the same thing again, in the next stitch, out the next, give it a little pull, and just keep doing that until the hole closes. There we go. Maybe one more. Then hide this tail end, so it's going to sew over anywhere, and then back in through there, out over here maybe, and then just push the project down a little bit, hold that, trim, and the tail end disappears on the inside. And there we go, there is our little flower. It's not a flower, I keep calling it a flower. A little succulent plant, and I'm not sure if that one will fit in this pot. I may need to get a bigger pot. Let's see, I think that's a little bit too big for this pot. There we go, and just about fit it in there. That actually looks really cute. It sort of looks like, what's that character out of the Simpsons? Sideshow Bob. It looks a bit like Sideshow Bob. But let's unscrew my camera and see if I can give you a better look. There we go. A little succulent plant. I hope you enjoyed that tutorial. I hope you managed to follow along, and you could just effectively just keep going with the same technique of working into your front loops and back loops. And like I said, this was made with a DK light worsted weight yarn, and this was with an Aran worsted weight yarn. You can see the difference in size. If you used a chunky yarn, it'd probably be even bigger. But there we go, I'll see you soon for some more crochet fun. Thanks for joining me, and yeah, bye.